Hello, and welcome to My Career in Data, a podcast where we discuss with industry leaders and experts how they have built their careers. I'm your host, Shannon Kemp, and today we're talking to Jatin Solanki from Decube.
With a robust catalog of courses offered on demand and industry-leading live online sessions throughout the year, the DATAVERSITY Training Center is your launchpad for career success. Browse the complete catalog at training.dataversity.net and use code DVTalks for 20% off your purchase.
Hello and welcome. My name is Shannon Kemp, and I'm the Chief Digital Officer at DataVersity, and this is My Career in Data, a DataVersity Talks podcast dedicated to learning from those who have careers in data management, to understand how they got there, and to be talking with people who help make those careers a little bit easier. To keep up to date in the latest in data management education, go to dataversity.net/subscribe. Today, we're joined by Jatin Solanki, the founder of Decube. And normally, this is where a podcast host would read a short bio of the guest. But in this podcast, your bio is what we're here to talk about. Jatin, hello and welcome.
Hey, Shannon, I'm super excited. Thank you for having me here and excited to share my journey and how I reached to this position.
I'm so excited to connect with you. And so tell me, you're the founder of Decube. So tell me, what type of business is this? What have you started here?
Well, Decube is a unified platform which manages data observability, data catalog, and governance. And the reason why we have a unified platform because we don't want people to juggle between multiple applications. And also the biggest struggle of a data leaders or data managers is the single source of truth. And that's exactly what we're trying to solve with our unified platform. And that's what Decube does at a very, very high level.
I love that a lot. It's definitely a need out there for sure. We hear that from our community all the time. So you're in a sweet spot there for sure. So what do you do then? What does your typical work week look like as a founder? I'm sure you work with lots of data yourself.
Yeah, as a founder of Decube, my job is to bring the data domain expertise within the team itself. Our team comprises of software engineers, data engineers, and even machine learning experts. My job is to ensure that everything is tied and we are focused on one vision itself. How does a typical week look like? Though I'm a founder, but we need to sell what we build. So I spend a lot of time on the discovery call, talking to data leaders of what kind of challenges they are facing, especially around data observability. And we try to see whether Decube can fit into that environment. And if it doesn't, I also take the feedback from them, and also that will help me to sharpen the product for the future roadmap. So that's precisely how our week look like for me. And I love doing that every minute, every day, every week.
Yeah, you have to be passionate about something to start a company, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you have to be passionate, you have to love what you do. Otherwise, you don't have the fire within you. If you are not motivated enough, it's quite a challenge for you to bring that same motivation within your employees and get the similar kind of output.
So tell me, was this the dream when you say you were 6 years old? Did you say I'm going to grow up and I'm going to found a company to solve data governance problems?
Uh, Honestly, no.
Okay. So
But
what
I
was the
do,
dream?
I do. My dream was, I was very, very fascinated with, the commercial pilots, right?
Mm.
So I always dreamt like, how can I be the commercial pilot? And today also, I do have a flight simulator at home, and which is like a proper flight simulator. I do enjoy that. It's also one of the areas which I love, flying aircrafts and all. But of course, I didn't sort of didn't sort of focus on that. I want to be a founder of a startup and all. But the way it actually the journey is more from an inception point of view, where My father was an entrepreneur, so he had a large business. I lost him, quite early in 2003. But there are a couple of learnings I got from him, especially, that when you want to do, especially on the business. So I was always like also loving what the business is and what it takes, right? And of course, if you're being a founder or if you're a businessman, you definitely earn a lot of wealth, right? But that's not like something which is guaranteed. You need to work towards it. I definitely wanted to be like a commercial pilot, but I didn't know like, and I will end up into a businessman. But again, here, one of the things which I learned from my father was don't jump the ship. First, learn about it. First, spend the time, build the domain expertise, see where you want to head to. And that's precisely what I did. I spent a lot of time in the data space, data domain, and then I decided that this is the problem I need to solve. And that's how I ended up as a founder.
Oh, very nice. And first, I want to say I'm sorry for your loss, and how nice that you're building his memory into your business. Um, so, uh, so tell me though, so as you started growing up, then how did you start change the passion and from like I want to be a pilot to uh, what did you start studying and where did you start how did you start moving your career forward before getting into data?
Yeah. So one was the fantasy world, that the commercial pilot you want to be. The other is when I was graduating in my academics. I found out, and even along with my brother, with my father, if I found out that I'm pretty good in mathematics, right? And gradually, the passion towards numbers sort of grew within me. So I did spend, from an academic perspective, I did my bachelor in business. But again, I did my master's in finance with minors in statistics from one of the top B schools in India. And after that, also, I did postgraduate diploma in a data science and AI. So sort of, the academics, which is more like a foundation for you. I've spent a lot of time there. And as I was just mentioning, as I was graduating towards my academic career, that's where the passion towards number grew. And it was like when I got a first campus offer, it was in the data field itself, and which is why I decided that, hey, this is something which I really love, spending my time understanding data, crunching numbers at that time, and which is why I continue in that field. The again the passion grew as I sort of progressed in my career, and I this is one of the fields which I don't regret sort of starting my career with, and I love doing it.
It's amazing. So you just really got into data just right away.
Yeah.
I love that a lot. So, so what's been the biggest lesson so far in your career?
Yeah. So couple of lessons out there. Uh, I guess the biggest lesson is the foundational layer, right? So I'm talking into sort of folds here. So one is at the team side. Uh, no matter when you are heading a department or you're a manager, or you are in a very early stage of your career, I guess you need to spend a lot of time building that foundational layer. Because if you are a head of department, and if the bottom layer of your team is not performing well, it's going to impact your metrics, your performance. So ensure that the bottom layer is always happy. If they are happy, the middle layer will be happy, and if they are happy, you are happy, right? So to spend more time with them, understand what is the motivation.
Hmm.
And most of the times, I also learn money is not the motivation, not the driver every time. Um, and I always have a tendency to spend a little bit of time on understanding their personal kind of goals too, right? Understanding about their families, because that impacts the performance. If a one person has a fight with his wife, that morning is not good for him. It's not productive. right? So if you understand that sort of background of the person, it really helps you to get the best out of the person itself. On the personal side, I think so. The collaboration between other departments is super crucial. And when you are a data leader, or even though for that matter, data manager, it's very, very crucial for you to manage your stakeholders. And one of the lessons which I've learned in past was, so I was building a machine learned model, and I was ready with the model, but one of the biggest things which I didn't do properly was the stakeholder management, especially from the product management side. And so I was ready with the API, and the product said, "Hey, it's 2 months away from now." So again, boiling down is the collaboration, the stakeholder management is something super, super crucial, considering that the data department is also like one of the is a center part of the business value chain. You are supplying the data, you are working with multiple stakeholders. You need to ensure that you spend tremendous amount of time there.
Well, I love those lessons. And I love that you mentioned that the lessons come from a challenge and a misstep, if so to speak, in order to learn it. And what a great message to like how important the people are, no matter what you're doing. And you're talking about building AI, and it's not replacing your people, but the people are so important to what it is you are building. That's really, really nice. Um, so so tell me, having worked with data for so long now, and it being your primary focus, um, what is your definition of data?
Well, any even today we are talking on the podcast. There's a there's a tons of amount of data out there. The way I speak, the way you speak, my gesture, even the words which I emphasize on, uh, can define my personality. So for me, the data could be in any shape and form. Uh, Mostly, I look at whether it is a structured data, whether it's unstructured data. So even you take an image on your iPhone or any phone for that matter, that's a data. Even when you're talking to anyone on the phone, that's data. So data is like any form in a digital format, right? Or even, sorry to say digital, but it could be in a physical format too, where there's any exchange of information in any language, either it's a binary language, either it's a vernacular language, it's English. That to me is a definition of data. And nowadays there are so many tools out there where you can collect whether your unstructured data, whether it's your image, audio, and any other files. And the other thing is the structural data, what kind of interactions you do with the application. Uh, that is something more like structured data. But yeah, that to me is data. But the next step towards the data is how do you translate that into a knowledge, and that is something which is very, very crucial, as a data leader, as a data manager.
Very true. Any best practices to translate that data and put it into context?
Well, there are a lot of libraries available where you can sort of translate that data into a certain form, right?
Mhm.
Like just to give you an example, if there is a image, you can definitely use libraries to convert that image into a binary language, right? Where we can just convert like all the colors, like it's the colors have a range of 0 to 256. So you can define that, you can actually pixelate that into a metrics, into a numbers. The other form, which is the very, very simple, is you dump data lake. And nowadays, a lot of companies are adopting that structure where you sort of ingest or sort of store everything in likes of Amazon S3 or something like Google. So it's more like the Bloop storage. That's what I'm predominantly going through. So that's the, I would say, one of the best practices out there.
Very nice. So, especially having worked with data for so long, do you see the importance of data management and the number of jobs working with data increasing or decreasing over the next 10 years, and why?
Well, this is a tricky question, uh,
Mm.
but at the same time, at a very early stage, after discussing with few of the data leaders out there in the industry, the data management is definitely going to evolve as companies geared to invest in generative AI. And I believe that having generative AI, the roles will redefine within data itself. We may have less amount of data analysts because the generative AI is able to crunch the numbers, is able to slice the numbers. Business will be able to directly interact with those models and understand the data pretty easier and faster. But at the same time, for your model to perform well, you need to feed the data in a accurate fashion, or you need to feed the reliable data. So that's where the dependency on your data engineers, your data ops people becomes more critical. So I see the weightage changing, right? You may end up having more data engineers, more data operation people, because as
Mhm.
company invest in the generative AI, you need to have more pipelines, more data going in, more unstructured data, and you need to take out the meaning out of the data. So again, there you will require some of the ML experts and AI engineers too to maintain that model and continuously monitor that model too. So I see that shift happening and
Mhm.
definitely one of the reasons why we are focusing, and every company needs to focus on the data reliability, because that lays the foundation again for whether it's your AI model or whether it is your data products internally. If you have a right and reliable data, accurate information, you will get accurate output. Otherwise, it's a typical saying we have is garbage in, garbage out. So that's the paradigm shift which are early signs are showing. But again, as the models evolve, as the generative AI evolves across in the coming few years, I guess we are also geared to sort of change that within our data management as a community. But again, just to answer that, from an outcome perspective, I see there's definitely going to be an increase in the data management people within the organization itself.
More and more companies are considering investing in data literacy education, but still have questions about its value, purpose, and how to get the ball rolling. Introducing the newest monthly webinar series from DATAVERSITY, Elevating Enterprise Data Literacy, where we discuss the landscape of data literacy and answer your burning questions. Learn more about this new series and register for free at dataversity.net.
Yeah, and you mentioned, the garbage in, garbage out, and how important it is to have quality data going into your models. So putting an emphasis and stress on then, the importance of data governance in order to manage that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess the data governance as you graduate into your journey of the data management. So sometimes I have seen that the data governance is not required on day one itself. But it is, I mean, based on my best practices, I would include that into day one, but I'm just more talking towards the reality part of it, right? Because as the company is developing the data practices internally, they hit a wall where they need to bring in more controls, right? They have understood what it takes to drive the data internally for growth, and which is where now they want to bring a control saying that we would require a module, a framework like data governance, because we have so much data internally. We have external data, IoT data, we have internal sensitive data, we have we have like transactional customer data and so on and so forth, which is where then access becomes like a challenge. Like, how do you provide access to the people and how do you monitor those access? And that's one element. The other element is you have certain sensitive information. Some of the financial companies have credit information about you as a person. So you need to ensure that those are protected from even the internal employees. And that's where the requirement of data governance comes into picture, and which is why it's very, very crucial. At the same time, people need to realize the importance of it. It is a long-term gain. It is not something like a magic wand. It is not like an AI model also where you deploy and you may see the results in a month or so. It's also a cultural change, right? It's the way you function, the way you define your processes internally. So that's where the data governance comes into picture. Again, I also emphasize the data governance is more like a framework which you need to bring across into your organization, the cultural changes. Then you should look at the tooling part. We solve the tooling problem, but if you deploy the tool now and there's still not a change in the culture or the frame or the process itself, is not going to reap any benefits for you. So that's something is very, very important for all the companies to sort of emphasize on, is the importance of the framework.
It's interesting. We still hear from a lot of people that they're struggling to get funding for or get executives to buy off on even starting a data governance initiative. What would you say to those executives? Say, hey, this is why so many executives think that the data governance is a dirty word, and it's really just about adhering to uh, laws, but it's so much more, like you just said, than that, and it's so important to the management of the data within the company. So what would be your sales pitch to somebody who's not yet on board, um, to understand the importance of why it could benefit the company?
Yeah. So this is super important, and this is also very important question for a lot of data leaders out there, even for executives. The way I help the data leaders, because we work very closely with the data leaders to sort of champion internally and be sort of sponsor this particular data governance project where they can onboard us, right? So it's actually, for me, it's agreed out there. But in reality, where even when I was a data leader and when I wanted to pitch in the data governance framework, the way I got the buy-in was you don't need to talk the data, the technical language in front of your executives. They really won't understand what you are trying to define, what is the kind of impact. So what I did was I simplified things for them, right? Because we as maybe execs or even like a human, we are more reactive than preventive, right? And data governance is also part of preventive kind of frameworks. So we always have to showcase that what is the impact if your data gets leaked out. So if you sort of, this is just one example. If you tell your executives that, hey, if your data get leaks out, first of all, you get a loss of millions of dollars. The other thing is the reputation of the company. And we all know the negative news spread across like bush in the fire. But at the same time, if it is like, so if the reputation gets impacted, it also impacts your customer sentiments. They might not do business with you. And even if it is a B2B companies, the businesses might not want to engage with you because you're not safeguarding your data in a right fashion. So this is just one of the replications you will see, and if your data gets leaked out, right? So if you are able to explain that, and I'm sure executives will give you a buy-in for that. At the same time, you also need to tell them like what it takes to bring that project in. What is the absolute dollar value, and what's the absolute dollar value in terms of returns you will be getting, in the next 3 or 4 years. What's the kind of savings you have? So it's more like a total cost of ownership kind of model. But again, you also need to understand what's the value you're driving internally. That is something which is very crucial. And the value sometimes is not always about absolute dollar, because subjects like data governance and even for that matter data observability, these are subjective, right? These are like productive, these are productive tools, right? It helps you to improve productivity internally. So you will see the gradual change in the coming months/years, which is why you will always see this data governance is not like a a SaaS tool which you can install it today and uninstall it tomorrow. So that's something which doesn't happen that way. So if you sort of focus on all these elements and put it very simplified version to your executives, you will get it's a high probability for you to get the approval slash, the kind of stamp on your project saying that please go ahead and do the procurement.
Very nice. So then tell me, advice would you give to people who are looking to get into a career in data management, especially with the shift, as you mentioned, happening? So what do you think people should focus on, and what should how do they get into a data engineering role per se?
Yeah. So again, as I just personally speaking, we have to emphasize more on the foundational layer of what it takes to be a data engineer, to be ML experts or AI experts out there. But if you notice, there are a couple of things which are pretty common. Maybe it's writing codes on Python. Maybe it's writing codes on some other language for that matter. So having, I would say, basic skills about, the coding skills about Python or some other common languages would be really, really important. But at the same time, the reason why the foundational knowledge helps you is tomorrow, if there's a new language which comes in and it sort of overpowers Python, you need to have the skills to immediately shift into those new languages itself. Which is why if you have the right foundation, like maybe of some of the basics of computer science, doesn't matter. You don't have to do a degree in computer science, but maybe just understanding some of the modules out there, which there are a lot of websites available today where people can learn that. The other thing is about spending about time of what is the data framework? What are the types of data you have? What it takes to write a SQL query? So there are this basic functional knowledge which is already available. I'm more inclined towards the data engineering part where you need to have a basic of how does an SQL how do you write an SQL script, some of the basic Python scripts, but also some of the technologies nowadays has become quite common, right? What is Kafka? What is the event streaming? Because as companies are investing in the data management, people want real time, and there are solutions out there which does this real time streaming. So it's better to have a knowledge of it, maybe not the deployment knowledge or not the sort of an advanced knowledge, but when you're preparing yourself for an interview or even that you want to graduate into this particular role, have that particular layer itself defined for you, invest there. I would say if I would not jump into getting into interview rounds, but I would actually spend more time in sort of preparing myself, upskilling myself, take a pause there, and then sort of go in the interview and start sort of, discussing about the roles.
Oh, well, Jatin, well, thank you so much. I mean, that's really very helpful and really great advice. So, and I would be remiss if I didn't ask, if somebody want to learn more about Decube and how it can help their business, how would they find you?
Well, they can just type in the word Decube in Google, and I'm sure we will be the first link appearing there. Alternatively, you can also search on just type in decube.io and you will be on our website. I try to again simplify things for all the data people out there, what we do, and how we sort of interact with your data infrastructure. So yeah, you will find more information. Alternatively, you can also find me on LinkedIn. And I love to talk with data people, and happy to spend some time in even simplifying what exactly the framework of data observability, governance, even data catalog for that matter.
Oh, very nice. Well, thank you so much. And we'll get those links posted on the podcast page for everybody so they can click on those and chat with you.
Thank you. That will be fantastic. That will be easy browse for everyone.
Indeed. Well, today it's been such a pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today.
Thank you so much once again for having me, and I'm excited to see the published version of it. Once again, thank you so much. You guys have a fantastic day and a week ahead, and look forward for the. I've already subscribed to your talks. I love hearing more from you guys, and thanks for again helping the other data people to sort of learn from data leaders out there in the market. And this kind of learning is definitely required. And you are also building a community out there, which I'm super excited for.
Oh, well, thank you so much. We really appreciate that. And look forward to the community learning more about your product. It just, again, it's a nice sweet spot that you've got going on there. So, and to all of our listeners out there, if you'd like to keep up to date on the latest in podcasts and the latest in data management education, you may go to dataversity.net/subscribe. Until next time, stay curious, everyone. Thank you for listening to Dataversity Talks, a podcast brought to you by Dataversity. Subscribe to our newsletter for podcast updates and information about our free educational webinars at dataversity.net/subscribe.